long titles to the joint. So you know she's somebody important. When they come in with a long title, like they gotta have they don't even have an acronym for your title, do they? No. But we want to welcome Miss Sarah to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. If I could just give a little bit about me, I'm a national account director for sports and entertainment for Landry's Corporate. If you're not familiar with Landry's, we have a massive footprint out here in Houston. He has several assets out here, including the Houston Rockets, 12 hotels, 6 casinos, and 680 restaurants. So safe to say they do keep me busy. It's been great. I'm fairly new to Houston. I will be on my upcoming 2 years here, July 9th. I am still working around trying to find everything. I did find a turkey leg head,
which is important. Yeah. Which is what you got to do. Yeah. You know, so good. I'm so grateful for you being here, and especially amongst what's going on right now. And the first segment of what we want to talk about today is what is obviously the hot button going on. And I would like to know a lot about how one of two things have impacted you and your business in the work that you're doing over at Landry's. Or the Postal Hotel or those different places, y'all total business layout. How has, let's just start with, the most, not the most important as of recently, but, one of the hottest topics is obviously, the COVID-19 situation. So how has that impacted business for you guys?
Honestly, with since the pandemic, honestly, it's been, having to see our complete market, come to a halt. Seeing NBA in mid-season having to stop, MLB having to post their upcoming season, or postpone their upcoming season, and then concerts canceling. It's been a little bit of a shock for us. Of course, we want to be selfish and we want our sports and we want our entertainment. But we had to take a, step back and really just look at, what's the main focus here? The main focus is to, the safety and well-being of our athletes and celebrities. So, we've been in conversations. I've had plenty of conversations with, possibly fanless games, shortened seasons. So we are, that's just a sign of progress, So, excited to kind of be back a little bit, with MLB possibly coming back in July. 82 games, 41 fanless, 41 with fans. So, should be interesting.
It's gonna be really interesting, a true dynamic that we've never seen in our lifetime, right?
Yeah.
When sports, I don't think there's ever been an era of sports where there were fanless games, except for when, like, I know the NFL, when there was the the lockout and stuff like that, where there weren't as many fans, but they still had people in the stadiums, they still had people there. But this is a true dynamic that we've never seen and may not ever encounter again in our lifetime. So what do you think? How would that impact, the business going forward once things come back and once you see how the leagues start to come back and, try to normalize this new normal that we have, whether they have fans or not have fans? Or do you think they're going to do a lot of traveling? Like, is the MLB saying that they're going to let the teams travel, or is it going to be regional, or what?
So, yeah, the talk is right now, and of course it's still kind of up in the air, but they are trying to regionalize it, trying to limit as much travel as they can. They are looking to travel with more of their players, some of their spring training players, to be able to host as many games as they can in the city, and then being able to switch out players as they need. So it'll be interesting. Like you said, it's our new norm, and we're going to have to keep adapting and seeing how it goes. And I know a lot of the athletes, some of them, of course, they don't want to play for an empty stadium, right? You just don't want to do that. But we'll see.
But I bet they want that paycheck, though. So I bet they want that paycheck, right?
Exactly. So I know we're all tired of seeing e-gaming sports. We're tired of watching that on ESPN. I'm tired of watching horse racing. So I'm ready for sports.
That's cool. That's cool. It's definitely been an adjustment for all of us. And with that being said, I didn't want to dive too much into sports because I really want us to get back into that. Again, touching on some of these hot topics that's going on, with the death of Mr. George Floyd over in Minnesota. That was such a tragic thing, and we've seen such an impact nationwide by that, right? Like, there's so many riots and different protests going on, which I think there's so much to unpack from all of this that's happening right now. Like last night, you saw reports of just so many, buildings caught on fire, cars caught on fire. I saw police cars caught on fire. Things like that's happening in Atlanta. There was a report that the protesters broke into like the Louis Vuitton store over at Lenox Mall and, reportedly stole like $10 million worth of merchandise and things like that. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I would like to know, what's your take? I mean, this might be more of a personal question, but I mean, what's your take on, really the response to, the George Floyd murder? What is your take on that?
So, I've been watching it, following it. I've actually participated in some of the protests before, and I participated in some past protests where it was Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner. So, seeing this, I think that honestly, it's time. And I know that it's a radical, people are looking at the, revolt as like, seeing all the violence, seeing the cars on fire, and honestly, I don't think that it takes, in this personal opinion, I don't think that it takes away from the actual cause. I think that it just brings more attention, and it just shows that, they're tired. They're tired of being silent. When you look at it, peaceful protesting, yes, I'm all for it. But a lot of times it falls on deaf ears. So you got to make a change, and you have to make some noise, and you have to make something to where people are going to turn their heads and be like, okay, look, we have to change the system.
There's so much, you're absolutely right. Change has to be done. My take on this whole thing is that, again, I think there's so many different perspectives that you can look at this from, and you can address and have so many different views and points on this whole thing. But I think the ultimate message that's coming out of people are tired. People are frustrated with having the same conversation repeatedly. One of the things that I posted on my Facebook page, weeks ago, right when COVID started, when it was so quiet, and there was that you didn't see no people out in the streets, and the thing was kind of dying down, and it just made me really think. And one of my thoughts was, and I often put my thoughts on Facebook, and people like them, they don't like them, we respond, whatever, good or bad, whatever. But my thought was, had anybody heard about any police violence, at the beginning of COVID-19, when there, less people on the streets, everybody was staying in, whatever. But you also didn't hear about the police violence. You didn't hear about black men or women being shot, in the streets or in their cars or what have you at that time. And I just thought that was such a unique thing. And then, what was so amazing to me that, everybody wants to speak unity at those times. Everybody wants to say that, when COVID hit, we're all in this together. We're all one. Why can't, people's responses to my posts were, why can't we just all be humans? And why can't we just all be, and I'm like, well, because in my thought at that time was to say, when this thing is over and we get back to our normal, right? Then when we're getting out here murdered in the streets, whenever we're out here there's this police violence and all of these things, then where would those same messages be? Where would that same narrative of we're all in this together be? Who will be doing that? And it's so funny because when the situation happened with Ahmaud Arbery and a couple other people, when some of the people were protesting in New York and New Jersey, there were some incidents with police then, they came out and said, I came out and said, excuse me, I posted another post as a follow-up to that and said, I guess we're back to normal. Yeah. Because now you're seeing this activity, and some of my friends, on my Facebook friends, love them to death. And they were like, how could you say this is normal? How could you, why, this is not normal to me? Well, as an African-American in this country, that's what normal is. And what normal is, shamefully, being an African-American in this country, is living in fear. I live in fear every time I see the red and blue lights come on behind me on a police car. I live in fear anytime I'm stopped by the cops. And I know I may not have done nothing. You hear conversations what frustrates me is that, with police, that's the one profession that you could change somebody's life because you're having a bad day. I guess that and maybe being a doctor. Somebody can perform surgery. That dude wake up on the wrong side of the bed could be another thing, right? But for a police officer to impact somebody, you can really change that person's life. Like even, just recently going to one of the protests or just approaching the area where they were protesting. The police officer was walking up to a police officer and he was like, if you come this way, you're getting arrested. Right. If you come this way, you're getting arrested. Well, why we're out here. Right. And I'm not being mean. I'm not saying anything crazy, but just his whole aggression in dealing with that issue, it could have went a number of different ways, right? I could have responded a certain way. Then that would have escalated how he responded, and then it would just snowball from there, right? It's because he might have been tired or he might have been frustrated with being out there dealing with all these people or whatever, but just because he's having an emotion reaction to whatever, maybe his day, maybe he was mad at the wife, whatever, now I ultimately got to pay a different price, which could also, ultimately cost me my life. And that is a true issue that I don't like about police officers. And I think a lot of times those who are in those positions, they abuse that power.
Right. I think one thing we have to look at too, is, and we have to educate our youth, right, is that I have two sons. I have two black men that I'm raising. And, we have to look at, not all police are bad. We just need to educate them as far as when you look at the story today with the sheriff out of Michigan, I think his name is Chris Swanson, how he understood the movement and he, put the baton down, took all his gear off, and it was so powerful to just see him walk with the people. And, it is something that I think that if all the rioting wasn't going on, his head would not have been turned. But now his head is turned, as other police that you saw, on the news today. Really just, they're understanding the perspective and realizing that, there's a problem.
So to your point, which like I said, there's so much you can unpack from all of this is going on. But I love that point because that's something that I want to talk about, because you're right with that sheriff. That was such, like you said, it was such a powerful statement that he made. What's so amazing about all of the protesters and stuff like that, and I could be generalizing, and I'm gonna say this, but I'm going to say this, that a lot of times African Americans, our responses aren't what people think. We're always, once there's a wrong committed against us or what have you, we still will welcome, the good folks in. So we still will welcome, white people in to be a part and, celebrate with us or protest with us or whatever, right? I think that's such a powerful quality, and I don't want to say trait, but quality that I've seen amongst the African American
culture, right? I think that we are a very trusting culture. We want to think the best of people first, and there's a lot of white people that, love the culture. They want to be a part of it. They want to, share the food and share the engagement that we have with each other and the music. Mm-hmm. So, I think that has always been just a part of, a black and brown culture.
Now, what's so funny, I'm not so funny, but another thing that's really kind of amazed me about this whole thing that I've seen, you've seen more police. You just said something earlier in that, not every police officer is bad. Well, that is so true, right? But I think it's amazing how you could see people bringing that out and pointing that out. But it's the same on the other side of the fence. Not every African American is bad. We're not all gangsters. We're not all thugs. We're not going to rob you. We ain't going to beat you up. We're not going to break your window. We're not going to kill you, Right. But all the propaganda that people believe about the African American, especially, black men, and things like that, that leads them to pass their judgment towards us, right? So it's true. Not every cop is a bad cop. Not every cop is out to get you when they stop you and, going to ruin your life and all. That is so true. But it's also true on the other side of the fence. And I think that police are the ones who are supposed to act in a way really with a lot more thought in their reaction as opposed, as they're addressing different issues or stopping a car, stopping somebody on the street or whatever it may be. They're supposed to act with a lot more caution or, paying a little bit more attention to, you know,
Right.
the scenario and things like that, and how they're handling a potential suspect or situation or whatever. But I think it's great, you know, to see the police coming out, and police, you know, we've seen pictures of police kneeling with the protesters. You've seen more police, like you said, that sheriff that was in Michigan, he not only spoke to them, but he walked with them. He marched with them. And you saw other cases of police doing that in other cities around the country. And to me, that's such a powerful statement there in and of itself, because it's a powerful statement on both sides. One, it's showing the police having sympathy and understanding where we're coming from with this message and why we're out here to protest. And two, it also shows that from the side of the protesters that we're not so ignorant or so hard on the issue that no, you can't sympathize with us.
Right.
There's no way you could ever see my point. There's no way you could ever sit on this side of the fence. And that's what's truly so powerful to me. And it's very moving to see that, because you don't get to see a lot of that. You don't get to see people engage in that way. And it's always, you know, us clashing and fighting and things like that. So I think it's such a movement when you get to see that, because I think it's finally, you know, we're getting people to make a statement. And I hope that this is not one of those situations where a lot of times in the African American community where we'll make this noise, but in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we won't hear nothing. We'll boycott somebody and we won't hear nothing. Now, you know, while we're protesting, and I'm going to say this about the protest too, one of the things I've learned about the protest and doing some of these research is that you got people calling us thugs, calling us, you know, whatever, all sorts of names, but it's not all caused by African Americans. A lot of the people who really turning up out there aren't African Americans, and that's real. And I've seen that reportedly a number of times across different media platforms. Like, what do you think about that? What do you think about the destruction that's happening, during these protests? How do you feel about that?
So, and I see it a lot as far as, like, you know, with all the looting and people want to say, you know, that it is African Americans doing this. But as you watch the news, I mean, you see it's all races, you know, and I think that it's just that message of, you know, people are just trying to make some noise, right? They're just trying to bring attention to the cause. So with all these races participating in it, you know, I think that it's just showing that, you know, everybody is trying to project the same message. Now, it might not be the right thing, you know, but I think that, you know, when you look at it, and I have a difference of opinion, because I think that what's going to hit hard is hitting these big corporations, right? So I'm not condoning looting, but I am just saying that, you know, when you talk about Louis Vuitton being broken, when you talk about Chanel and Hermes, you know, these buildings and these companies, they have insurance. They could take a blow. And that's how I feel.
But I think people losing them because they just trying to come up. They try to look jazzy out there on the block. You know, once this thing over, they gonna be fresh and so clean to be selling those trains when they done. But that's a whole other thing. But you're right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And they're young. You know, it's young people. You know, so could be that too. But you know, I think that they have the idea of, you know, let's hit these big corporations. Let's hit a Target, which Target hits very close to home. I love Target. I'm always in Target. But, you know, let's hit Target. Let's hit, you know, a lot of these big corporations, because that is the only way that if it doesn't affect someone's pocket, then I think that you're not going to see a change.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, that's where you gotta hit them where it hurts, and it's gonna only hurt them in the pocket. And you know, the thing about the African American community, our community, we will start that process. Back in the day when Martin Luther King and, you know, Malcolm them, when they were really protesting against a company or against an institution, they did it for long periods of time. That, like the bus boycott and all of that, that went on for like a year or so. Yeah. And they didn't do that, and they managed, and they, you know, got their operations together and logistics together to help people get the transit back and forth, or you walked or whatever. Like, they really stuck to it. We don't have that today. Like, there's a lot, we're a lot more forgiving and understanding and willing to accept. Like, you had the situation with the store, I forgot the brand. I think it was, I forgot the name because I don't go shopping like that. So I don't even know what they're saying. But the company that had the brand with the monkey, the black boy was in the monkey, and then they did a picture with the white kid, and he had like a toy, but they had the black boy. Yeah, H&M. So, while everybody was an uproar about that, that lasted like 2 days, I think, right?
Yeah, same with Gucci.
Same with Gucci. Yes, and so right, so and it doesn't last. There's no stick to itness, and so that's my whole issue with what we do. We don't make enough noise for long enough. Yeah. We'll do it for a few seconds, but we're gonna get hop right back on the other side. So it's not. So they don't really care. So like these companies or these corporations or these other entities that could really come up and we could really make some noise with. They don't really care because we truly don't understand the value of the dollar that we have. We have the highest buying power amongst all cultures, and that's because we go spend our money the most. That doesn't mean that we're making the most money or anything like that. It really means that we go spend the most money on different things. And because right now I think it was at 1.4 trillion in is our buying power in the U.S. alone. Mm-hmm. And if we took that and we did not go out and buy those products, the name brands that you talked about, the Gucci, the Louis, the whomever else, right? And we took those dollars away and we truly put them into the African-American community. We put them in the African-American businesses. We put them in those places that are going to truly respect us because they care about our dollar. Then we really, truly would make some noise, because a lot of these companies, they don't care about you. They only care about that dollar. Right. That dollar that you bring them. If you're gonna continue to bring them dollars, they're not gonna stand up for you. Why would they? Because you're still paying them.
That's right. You're still
helping them bottom line at the end of the day. So I think it's such a unique thing that we all have to understand. And there's ways that we could go on and fight and stand up by not only protesting, but we could protest with the most power. Like you said, hit them in their pocket. Hurt them where it really counts, Right. So, I think it's just so much to unpack from this whole scenario that we're going to get a lot about this here today. Right. We'd love to take some phone calls right now. So if you guys feel free to give us a call, you could call us on our line at 281-587-1540. That's 281-587-1540. Right here, we're listening. You can listen to us on 1540 AM or 101.7 on your FM dial. That's 1540 AM or 101.7 on your FM dial. That's where we at right here. It's the Cutting Edge. Hey, Sarah, let me ask you, what has been the weirdest thing that you've seen in this protest thing? Like, have you seen anything like crazy thus far? Like, what's the funniest thing that you think you've seen in people trying to protest right now?
Okay, it's not kind of funny, but not funny. But the one guy who was on the news came out with a bow and arrow and was trying to shoot it out into the crowd. And then he was talking to the newscaster, and he was like, the newscaster said, hey, what happened to your head? Why are you injured? He was bleeding from his head. And he said how he didn't realize somebody had caught him on camera doing the little bow and arrow thing. But he had said that he was in his car and was just saying all lives matter, and how he was attacked by protesters. And I was like, and there's so much footage from all different angles of this guy outside of his car with a bow and arrow. It was just so like, where are we right now? What are we doing? So crazy to see. I thought that was crazy. And then,
the people right now are, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. We're going to jump back into this real soon. But I think it's so funny because not everybody who's out there protesting is protesting. Some of them out there just to hang out and have a good time. All right. But listen, we're going to take a break real quick. Give us a call, 281-587-1540. Listening to The Cutting Edge. It's your host, Al Roundtree. We'll be right back.
I want to introduce you a gentleman that I've come to know and really appreciate. Dr. Raul Rodriguez Rejuvenation. It's a pleasure to have you here, sir.
I started my career in cosmetic surgery and aesthetic medicine over 20 years ago. And I've always been an innovator in everything that I've done. And I was fortunate enough to be featured on ABC News 2020 back in 2003 with Barbara Walters. doing the
Barbara
introduction.
Walters doing
Could
I
this
remember-
be
I
the
remember-
answer
I
to
remember-
your
I
dream?
remember-
To your
I remember-
dream?
I remember-
Absolutely. Back then, absolutely. Back then,
Give me a break segment.
Give me a
Yes.
break
John
segment.
Salzman.
Fortunately, the featured segment on 2020. So I've always been an innovator. So I've always been an innovator in done on the everything that I've done on the area of aesthetics and rejuvenation as well. I realized many years ago that just a scalpel to make somebody look and feel younger. And I incorporated into my practice hormone replacement, optimal nutrition, other things. I mean, what's the use of looking younger if you don't feel good? So a lot of what I do in integrated my practice is not just designed to help you look younger, more fresh, women as well as men, but also feel younger, ultimately even function. As we'll get into a little bit more.
With regard to men, erectile dysfunction, this has become very pervasive. To my surprise, I'm hearing men in their 30s are having issues right now.
Yes, it's true. And in my practice, I've had men, 50-something-year-old, 50-something-year-old, 26-year-old son, in because he had different issues. With the issue of erectile dysfunction, and I would like to rephrase that. Let's rename it as erectile functioning. The circulation gets poor as we get older. Everywhere in our body. Our circulation gets bad in our legs. Circulation gets bad in our heart. And eventually we die of a heart attack. The same thing happens with erectile function. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not a psychological issue. It simply has to do with the fact that circulation is not as good as it was when you were 25 years old. But now we have technology to reverse some of those changes, some of that deterioration of circulation to help restore more normal blood flow circulation to the area. Even though it's 25 years down the road from when you used to be 25. The procedures that I'm talking about is a procedure that actually helps stimulate the formation of new blood vessels in the area. It restores a more normal blood flow, more circulation, more healthier, younger function.
You have a procedure that you revolutionized, and now in the industry, there is an option. Tell us about what that process and how it works.
It's called the Rod Rock. Rod for Rodriguez, Rock ROC for restoration of circulation.
Ooh, I like that. Restoration of circulation. The Rod Rock treatment.
Essentially, what I've done is combine different modalities that have been around for a long time, but combine them to get synergy, stimulating new blood flow, new blood vessel formation. In the penis, and particularly in the part of the male organ dilates with blood, called the corpora cavernosa. And that particular treatment involves using some instrumentation with machines to deliver energy to the area. But also I combine that with stem cells. There's a lot of stuff in the news about stem cells to rejuvenate tissues, to heal. And I take those different modalities, combine them in a 2-week protocol to get significant improvement in 95% of the people.
Wow! And you're saying it's a process that's only about 2 weeks.
It's about 2 weeks. You come into the.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Cut the Edge right here on Edge Radio. It's your man Al Roundtree, aka Tree, aka Mr. Social Baby. I don't care what you call me, just call me. I'm sitting here with the lovely Miss Sarah Lee, who's been so gracious and coming to join me today on the first ever Cutting Edge program. Been doing quite awesome, I might add, absolutely. I want to dig a little bit more. We were talking about, obviously what's going on with, the response to George Floyd's passing and the way that he passed, his murder. Just call it what it is. I think a lot of people have, different issues with some of the stuff that they're seeing in the media. One would be people saying that they're tired of seeing his actual murder in the media. And then another one, people say they're tired of seeing the protests and stuff like that. And I think it's a matter of perspective on that particular subject. Like whether you think it's too much, they're showing it way too much, or what do you think about that? Like, what are your thoughts on how much they're showing the murder or the protests, or what?
I think it's meant to offend, right? So like play it. I want you to play it. This is my personal opinion, but I want you to play it over and over to where it's going to encourage and ignite some change, you know? So it's meant to be offensive. It's meant to, you know, be sensitive content to where you cringe when you watch it, you know, because if it's not, then, you know, you don't really have anything to stand on, but it is. So, you know, it will make people, you know, want to be a part of the cause, you know, stand for justice, you know, wake up in the middle of their sleep and be like, okay, this is not right. So
we hope, right? Like we
exactly.
hope, we hope. But I agree with you on that point.
But you know, we've seen. Okay, if we can just you know, mention, since you know this is my market, sports and entertainment is, you know, you see a lot of the celebrities that normally would not say much. A lot of them, you know, try to keep, you know, in the middle to where it doesn't hurt their brand. But you see a lot of these celebrities, you know, standing up. You see LL Cool J, you know, rapping a song, you know, about, you know.
LL said something?
Oh, you missed that.
I missed that one.
I was getting Floyd Mayweather just came out, said he's paying for all the funeral costs for, you know, everything going on. And then, who else did I see? Jay-Z just spoke to the governor of Minneapolis and pleaded, you know, for them to do something, for them, you know, he's asking for justice. So
along those lines, like, you know, you talk about the sports and entertainment, it's such a, you know, interesting perspective. Again, there's just so much that could be unpacked from this whole situation. I have to revisit. Well, first of all, let me just say this first. You know what? We'll get into that later. What I have to revisit though is thinking about how the image, you know, they compared, there was this comparison of images where they have the image of the police officer kneeling on George Floyd, and then they have an image of Colin Kaepernick kneeling. And that whole dynamic of, well, if you had an issue with this, meaning Colin Kaepernick kneeling peacefully at a football game, right, bringing attention and awareness to this very issue, but you don't have a problem with this cop kneeling on the throat of this man, choking him and killing him. I think that's an interesting dynamic that people brought up. And what are your thoughts on that? And what do you think, like, let's say like the league or any businesses, these sports leagues and the sports industry will do as a response to that?
I think, you know, of course, in a lot of in sports alone, it's probably, I don't know the statistic, but, you know, if maybe you want to say a majority or 80% of the athletes are Black, you know, and this I think will show that, you know, how much power you have, right? So being a celebrity, being African American, being an athlete, you know, you have such a platform that you can use. So you could see, it would be crazy to see, but amazing at the same time to see, you know, all, you know, African American athletes sit out a game and, you know, just for the cause, you know. So, you know, you just never know how it's going to affect the league. But I'm confident that
you don't know how it's going. Well, first of all, you know, you still in my thoughts. You must have heard me say that. You still in my ideas. But you're absolutely right in that point that, you know, if every African American, not even just every African American, but every athlete right, that, you know, fought alongside for this particular cause, right, if they would stand together, I'm always saying, you know, if I'm gonna call, you know, LeBron and Chris Paul, right, and then, you know, the Black guys in the NFL, the Russell Wilsons, you know, all those different athletes, if everybody would take a stand together, mm-hmm, collectively as a unit and across the league, I don't care if you're a rookie, if you on practice roster, or if you know, the one making multi-million dollars every game, if everybody stood together in allegiance, right, against this cause, that would ruffle or really tear down, you know, the whole industry that day, right, you know, and it can't be on a day where, you know, it has to be on a day where it's an actual game taking place. Yeah. You know, I'm talking about, you know, the rosters are set. They go warm up in the whole 9, yeah, and don't come back out. Like, imagine that.
Yeah. Well, and you coming from the league, like how do you think that it would affect, the businesses, the business of sports?
Oh, it would shake it at its core.
Yeah.
It would shake it at its core because, like you said, I think in the NFL, over 70% of the players are black, right. And yet I don't feel like the NFL does enough to address or the black community, or especially when it does stuff like this. And then you got guys like Colin who had to pay a hefty price for making such a stance, for this very thing that we're talking about here today. So I do feel like, the athletes, that they have an opportunity to make more noise than anybody else, if they all got together and just said, you know what, man, we ain't doing this today because y'all don't back up. There's not enough attention being brought to our issues, to our concerns, but yet y'all want to use our talents. You want to use our culture. Right. Y'all want to use our skills. Y'all want to use us to help you hit the bottom line, right? Like if we're doing that, then I think, you'll be hearing some different companies talking about, okay, we need to do something. Yeah. We need to make sure that these people are, looked at their causes, that we address their causes and concerns. Right. And I think it's a real thing.
Sorry, don't want to interrupt, but I do think that you're right. It's I think that with everything going on right now, I think there should be an education element to athletes to where they understand that they can change the narrative, that they don't have to have the mindset of, play or shut up. It really has right now. I think we have the opportunity to educate athletes and entertainers of, what your power is. You can stand on a platform. You do have a platform, so.
Yeah, they're all told to shut up and dribble, and shut up and play. Right. We don't want you to have a position. Right. I think it was such a, and then you have, it's interesting when you see, I'm sure you watched the documentary with Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, and how, the way that he was impacted. So when there was a cause or somebody was running a race in his home state of North Carolina, and how he didn't get involved, and his stance was, he got quoted as saying, hey, Republicans buy sneakers too. So he didn't want to, address the issue publicly or address, or back. I think he was supposed to back one of the people that was running. He chose not to because it was a business decision. And I think, the scary part of that is that you see that even today, like with amongst the athletes now, even in kneeling, when that was becoming such an issue, some of the guys didn't want to kneel because they were scared of the repercussions that were going to come from them kneeling.
Well, yeah, Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones had told his athletes, his whole entire roster, that if they kneel, they'll be, benched for the entire season. So of course you don't want that, right? So right,
but if they kneeled, then who gonna play? See,
exactly.
So if they took that stance and it has to be a collective unit. You can't have 5-7 guys kneeling and then you got the majority everybody has. If everybody did it, I bet you he wouldn't hold that position because he wouldn't have no product out there on that field, and I know he'll be sick. Jerry Jones that might be the day. He have a heart attack or stroke out there on that field. If everybody imagine Dak Prescott don't go. Zeke don't go out there. If what's my running back, Coop don't go out there and catch balls, and if all those dudes don't go out there and they all sit down one day, one game to make noise, man, they'll change everybody's attitude and perspective on this. You're gonna have to listen to me.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to listen to me, and not only listen to me, do something about it. Now, I'm not gonna say that they haven't taken those steps, but I just feel like the league don't do enough.
Right.
These different leagues don't do enough. I know the NBA is a little bit more liberal. They give the athletes a lot more use of their platform because LeBron and the team came out with shirts. I think it was Eric Garner with the I Can't Breathe shirts and things like that, which is awesome. Yeah. And I think it's important for our guys to really stand up. And I appreciate and applaud them for what they do. I just think that there's a lot more that could be done, and I'm not going to put all the pressure on them. It's not for them to try to come out and change this world or change the ideas or the mindsets of so many people. But it's not them to take action on everything. But I do think if they were to take action of that magnitude, it would resonate so loudly across the country and across the world, to be honest with you, because NBA is such a huge international, even the NFL. Like that has a huge impact around the world with people. And so for those guys to come out and take that kind of stance together, I think it'll change the whole scope of this whole issue immediately.
I think the only way that maybe will happen is if, they're feeling support from the league, and, once you see more people of color in league operations. So people that are working for the league, me. So right, I'm just taking a look at my company. I'm one of the youngest and of color in my position. So as I look around, I don't see anybody of my of my stature that looks like me. So do I feel or how can I imagine how these athletes feel because they don't have that support? I can only imagine. So I feel like they would get that support, and the education would be there if you saw more people of color in league operations, working for the league, and more directors and part of the business.
That's true. I mean, and again, that leads into a whole nother conversation with the stuff that's going on in the NFL and in these different leagues with what they're doing with players and not doing with African Americans as to positions and things like that, so that we can, really change how this thing. It's crazy when you got a league like the NFL where there's 70% black, but in leadership, this is probably less than 20% of that league is, so it's not representing the representation of what's on the field, of the product on the field really isn't there.
Right.
So it just shows you kind of the mindset of what this is really about, like, what it really is. And so, I'd love to hear more from some of our listeners and those who are watching us out there on Facebook world. Come on and check us out. Definitely give us a call at 281-587-1540. That's 281-587-1540. We love to get your thoughts, chime in on it. I know you might not like everything Sarah said, but it's okay. We're going to forgive you anyway. No, I'm just playing. But, we love to get you guys' take on what's going on, and especially how it's impacting the sports industry and the entertainment industry. Love to get some more questions and feedback from you guys, and just some of the things that you've seen. We love to know more about that. Now, Sarah, again, this whole issue is just doing so much. Is affecting so many businesses. It's affecting sports. Not just COVID, but now this as well. Now, has Landry's or anything has this impacted Landry's in any way with the protests or anything like that? Have you guys seen or anything like that happen in the business yet?
No, I'm not in particular with the protests. I think more so, we have assets right downtown where they're taking place, and we want to protect our assets, our hotels down there, restaurants down there, but not so much with the protests, but definitely with COVID and the pandemic. We've had to really learn how to morph our business. So, instead of, having your traditional, I do contract negotiations for visiting teams and visiting entertainers. Instead of, going after that because there is no shows and there is no game, it would be more so I had, an entertainer that bought, $10,000 worth of gift cards to gift to healthcare workers at MD Anderson. And he's not even from Houston. So, but he loves the city and he comes quite often. And so, shout out to Branson Cognac. That's his cognac. So, but he's a major supporter of, Landry's. We support him as well. And we've had to, we partnered with the Rockets, of course, to, help feed essential workers at the food bank. Not me, but, Hardin and, a lot of people at our corporate office, they partnered with Kroger to provide 500 families with, groceries. So we've had to morph our business into the needs of the community more so. So that's where I saw it.
That's good. And it's definitely a powerful thing to see, you're getting that kind of response a lot from, from our athletes, from those in the entertainment industry, being so responsive. You talked a lot about that earlier, how you see that there are a lot of entertainers and athletes speaking to this particular situation with George Floyd and his murder, and what's going on with that. And I think it's great that they do that. And I actually think that more need to speak out. I think more need to have some words against it. I think it was interesting what I think Lil Wayne said something the other day where he had a statement in response to this whole thing where he said that he thinks that we should blame ourselves. And it's crazy because when people say something nowadays, people tend to take it and just run with whatever they heard and just go. And that's just what it was without understanding fully the context that he may have been speaking of and in which he meant what he was saying. Because I know he didn't mean that, we literally should blame ourselves. When I read his statement, it sounded like he was saying more about the fact that we don't do enough. Getting to this point, like I was talking about earlier, we may protest for a little bit. We may huff and fuss for a little while, but then that's it. There was really no huge stance, or we don't really take a strong position forever that's really going to resonate with those people that it needs to resonate with. And I think that's what he was trying to say. I don't know what a lot of other athletes are saying, but I do think, those guys need to stand up and say something, because a lot of people that look up to them for a lot of different reasons, and they need to understand that they're impacted by this too.
I think that, a lot with the athletes, I don't think that you could get a temperature of the riots and the protests just off of social media and Instagram. I honestly feel like, and I'm a little biased, but I honestly feel like you have to get out there. You have to march with the people. You have to, you have to be out there to smell the tear gas, right? You have to get a sense of, what are you fighting for to get out there? So, it'd be good to see more of the athletes instead of, voicing, something on social media.
Oh, you said like being physically out there on the streets and letting them see them. Yeah, you saw J.R. Smith was out on the street. He was beating the brakes off somebody. I don't know what was going on. He was going ham on somebody.
I don't know the entire story, but he was being a protester though, right?
Yeah. But it was. I'm just kidding, Jr. He was. I think the guy was supposed to be vandalizing a car. I don't know if it was his car or not, but he got on top, because the people that are looting and tearing up stuff. Yeah. So he went in on this dude that was, messing up a car or something like that. And so he beat him up pretty bad. So that's why they was out on the street. So, but again, about those protesters, people that are out there, I don't know if everybody's out there to push the narrative or to spread the message. I think, I was talking to one of my best friends who told me there were some people out there, they're playing music. They're just kind of out there just hanging out just because there's other people out there. And then some people who are out there, like you said, that may just want to see, see what it's like, or see that element, or see, see what all this fuss is about, or this is really happening and things like that. So I wonder what percentage of people are out there really for, this message, for this cause, to really push the injustice and all the things that are happening to our African American community, happening to us. I want to know. I would love to. I don't know. They'll probably never do a poll on that. There's always a poll for something, but they won't put no poll on that. But it'd be interesting to see.
For sure.
So it's definitely good to see that. But I really would like to know who's out there hanging out, at these things, as opposed to, really being a part of, the what's going on with it. So, there was a couple different things as a response to George Floyd's murder. And one of the things they just charged the cop with murder. Mm-hmm. Now they only charged him with third degree. And some people have said, I'm not an attorney, I don't know enough about law, which you would think, probably being a black man, we definitely all need to be lawyers, right? Unfortunately. But I don't know enough about law to state, to really voice my opinion on whether or not that's good or bad. I think just from what I know, I could say that I feel like, it's a lesser cause or lesser charge, if you will. Right. Third degree murder. Although, I guess it was just announced that, his official cause of death was asphyxiation. So, that meaning he died from the result of this man having his knee on his neck. I know that purportedly before they also tried to say that there were, he had some previous conditions that caused his death, which was crazy to even think that you even come out in public and say that. That was a stretch,
right? Like, I'm like,
they're trying to do anything. And listen, this whole situation, again, it brings me back, and this is what I was going to say earlier. This whole situation brings me back to Rodney King. When I saw the image of those 4 officers on George, I thought about Rodney King and how they were beating him. They had that chain, and I don't know what they were doing with that chain. And remember him rolling, and the officer, him beating them and all that stuff. And so, listen, you think it went down in LA and even in a lot of cities after the Rodney King verdict came out, and they changed the location of the courts or wherever they were holding the court, and all 4 of those dudes got off. I don't remember if it was 4 or 5, but however many it was, they all got off. They all were acquitted. And
I really hope that doesn't happen with this.
Oh my goodness! Listen, if this dude, and even the other 3, they need to be charged with something too. I don't know if they should be charged with an accessory to murder. But they need to be charged because they're definitely guilty by association in this particular situation for sure. Because they did nothing. But if this dude, Chauvis, whatever his name is, if he gets off, oh man, I listen.
Well, you think there's fires now?
Listen. They're going to have the National Guard in every city. They're going to have the Army out in every city. And then even in those instances, I'm one of those people who are part of those organizations, the Army. I wonder if they would fight or what side they would be on. I think that would be such a tough space to be in. But again, Sarah, it's been such a delight having you here today. Truly have enjoyed you. I hope you'll come back and kick it with us, especially when stuff turns on, and everything goes well. Where can people, or how should they, do they need to get? They don't need to engage with you. Okay then? They ain't part of a sport. So if you're not singing and banging or something like that, don't even worry about trying to be safe. Okay, we get it. But we're glad to have you. Definitely hope you can come back. Love your views and your take on your position on things. Hope you guys have enjoyed this first show of The Cutting Edge, man. It's been a lot of fun, and we're going to have a lot more fun. We got more guests coming. We're going to be doing more shows. Listen, you can follow us right on Facebook at The Edge Radio and listening to us on 1540 AM or 101.7 on your FM dial. This is your man, Al Roundtree, a.k.a. Alfonso. No, that's my government name. Hold on. No, my bad. No. Alfonso Roundtree. Mama, don't beat me up. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry. I don't know what to disgrace you right now. A.k.a. Al, a.k.a. Mr. Social Baby, a.k.a. Tree. I get called all of that. Don't care what you call. Just call me. We're going to be back tomorrow right here at 2 o'clock on Edge Radio. It's a really good show. Thank you.
Been feeling a little edgy lately? Listen to Edge Radio. That'll push you over the top. 1540 AM and 101.7 FM.
Got a taxi. I coming. If you live it for the moment.